The White Autumn Song is a story from Pusonggaling's Strange Stories from a Chinese studio. In the story, Bai Qiulian is a rare white-finned dolphin spirit, and Mukangong is a young scholar. His father is a merchant who travels between the regions of Yin and Chu. One night, while feeling bored, Mukangong recites poems to the moon. Unbeknownst to him, the beautiful mermaid Bai Qiulian outside the ship becomes infatuated with him, leading to a mutual longing. Mukangong was the intelligent son of a merchant named Mu Xiaowan from Hebei. He had a strong fondness for reading. However, when he turned 16, his father considered bookishness to be outdated and had him learn the trade, accompanying him on trips to the Chu region. While on the ship, Mukangong would often recite and memorize classical poems and essays. Upon reaching Wang Cheng, his father stayed at an inn to watch over the cargo. Whenever his father left the ship, Mukangong would recite poems. His recitations were full of charm and strength. Sometimes he noticed shadows outside the window, as if someone was eavesdropping, but he paid little attention to it. One night, when his father was out at a banquet and hadn't returned by late hours, Mukangong continued his poetry reading at home with great enthusiasm. At that moment, he noticed someone pacing outside the window, their shadow clearly visible in the moonlight. Curious, he quickly went out to see and discovered a remarkably beautiful young woman, around 15 or 16 years old. When she saw Mukangong coming out, she hurriedly walked away. A few days later, while Mukangong and his father were returning to the north with their cargo, they anchored the ship by the lake at night. When his father went out, an old woman approached Mukangong on the ship and said, "Young man, you've captured my daughter." Surprised, Mukangong asked her what she meant. The old woman explained, "My family name is Bai, and I have a single daughter named Bai Qiulian. She loves reading and told me that she heard you reciting poems in the city. Now she misses you terribly, to the extent that she can't eat or sleep. I'd like to propose a marriage between her and you, and I hope you won't refuse." Mukangong liked the girl too, but he was worried about his father's reaction. He told the old woman about his concerns. The old woman insisted that Mukangong make a decision and warned him, in the world of marriage, sometimes sacrificing oneself is necessary for success. "Since I'm acting as the matchmaker now, if you don't agree, I'll feel ashamed. You might as well forget about returning to the north by ship." With that, she laughed. After a while, Mukangong's father returned, and Mukangong explained the situation to him, hoping for his approval. However, his father thought they were in a foreign land and suspected the girl might be too impulsive due to her teenage years. He dismissed the idea with a smile. The depth of the lake where the ship was anchored was not usually explored with the oars. But that night, the ship suddenly encountered sand and stones underneath, preventing it from moving. This was a common occurrence, and usually, the waters would rise after the peach blossoms bloomed in spring, allowing stranded ships to continue their journey at higher prices. Thus, Mukangong's father was not overly worried or surprised. He was mainly concerned about running out of money in the coming year, so he decided to stay. While his father returned to their hometown in Hebei to collect funds, Mukangong was secretly delighted but regretted not asking the old woman where she lived the previous night. When the sun set, the old woman arrived with her daughter, Bai Qiulian. She helped her daughter undress and lie down in bed, warning Mukangong, "Don't be carefree as if nothing's wrong when someone's suffering. Even if it's heartache, you should be more considerate." After speaking, she laughed. Bai Qiulian's words were as follows, "Seeing you exhausted by love, I'm ashamed." This is what she wanted to say. Mukangong was overjoyed and wished to share an intimate moment with her, but he realized she was still unwell and weak. He gently reached into her arms, playing with her, which made her happy and eased her frowning expression. She said, "Recite Wang Cheng's poem Robes of Gauze 3 times for me, and my illness will improve." Mukangong recited it for her. After reciting it twice, Bai Qiulian sat up and said, "I'm feeling better." As he began the third recitation, Bai Qiulian joined in with her tender and charming voice. Mukangong's emotions grew stronger, and he extinguished the candle, and the two of them lay down together. Before dawn, Bai Qiulian got up and said, "My mother will arrive soon." Shortly after, the old woman indeed arrived. Seeing her daughter dressed and sitting happily, the old woman felt both joy and relief. She instructed her daughter to come with her, but Bai Qiulian lowered her head and remained silent. The old woman left on her own, saying, "Since you enjoy playing with the young man, let your wish be granted." After she left, Mu Kanggong tried to find out where Bai Qiulian lived, but she replied, "We're just strangers who met by chance. Whether we can marry or not is uncertain. You don't need to know where I live." Despite their mutual affection, the constraints of their situation led them to separate with a heavy heart. Without knowing how much time had passed, one night, Bai Qiulian got up early, picked up a lamp, and suddenly opened a book. After reading it, her face turned sorrowful, and tears began to flow. Mu Kanggong quickly got up and asked what was wrong. Bai Qiulian said, "Your father is about to arrive. I used a book to divine our fate, and when I opened it, I saw Li Yi's Song of Zhongyuan, which seems to carry an unfavorable meaning." Mu Kanggong comforted her, saying, "The first line, marriage with Kudangjia, is already a good omen. How can it be bad?" Bai Qiulian felt slightly relieved by his words, and she got up and bid farewell, saying that they should temporarily part ways to avoid gossip before daybreak. Mu Kanggong held onto Bai Qiulian's arm, choked with emotion, and asked, "If my father agrees to our marriage, where can I notify you?" Bai Qiulian replied, "I will arrange to have someone keep me informed. I will know whether our marriage can happen or not." Mu Kanggong wanted to accompany Bai Qiulian off the ship, but she insisted he shouldn't. After she left, he made a promise to meet using the code of reciting poetry loudly. As time passed, whenever Mu Kanggong's father was away, he would recite poems aloud, and Bai Qiulian would come to him. By the end of April, the ship was still stuck, and the goods couldn't be sold at a good price. Traders were getting anxious, pulling money to buy pigs and cattle for sacrifices and prayers to the lake god. After the Dragon Boat Festival, heavy rains fell, and the ship was finally able to set sail. Upon returning to his hometown in Hebei, Mu Kanggong constantly missed Bai Qiulian day and night. This longing led to a severe illness. His father was deeply concerned and sought various doctors, and even consulted diviners and shamans in the hope of curing his son. Mu Kanggong privately told his mother, "My illness can't be cured by medicine or divine intervention. Only Qiulian can help." At first, his father was very angry upon hearing this. However, as Mu Kanggong's condition worsened day by day, his father's fear grew. He hired a carriage, took Mu Kanggong, and returned to the Chu region, reaching the spot where their ship had previously been anchored. Mu Kanggong's father inquired with the nearby residents, but no one knew the whereabouts of the old lady from the Bai family. Fortunately, an old woman was rowing a boat by the lake. She said that she was the one they were looking for. Mu Kanggong's father boarded her boat, caught sight of Bai Qiulian, and found her appearance quite pleasing. He was glad for his son. After learning more about the Bai family, he discovered they were just a mother and daughter from a fishing family, living on a small boat. Mu Kanggong's father told the old woman about his son's illness, and hoped Bai Qiulian would come aboard their ship to see Mu Kanggong. He believed that the sight of her might lift his son's spirits and aid his recovery. The old woman hesitated, as there was no formal engagement between them. However, after listening to Mu Kanggong's father's sincere pleas, she agreed. At night, old Mu went out, and the young woman indeed came. She arrived at the bed in the Toad Palace and sobbed, "Last year, I was like this, and I didn't expect you to be sick in the same way this year. This taste of longing, it seems you've experienced it too. But now your body is so weak, even if you're anxious, it won't improve immediately. Shall I recite a poem for you?" Toad Palace was delighted to grant her request. The young woman recited the same poem Toad Palace had recited to her last time, Wang Cheng's Robes of Gauze. Toad Palace said, "This poem represents your concerns. Can reciting it for me be of any use? But hearing your voice, I already feel refreshed. How about you recite thousands of willows stretched toward the west for me?" The young woman recited it. Toad Palace praised her, saying, Excellent. In one of the poems you recited for me before, picking lotus pods, there's a line that goes, lotus pods emit fragrance over 10 acres of ponds. I haven't forgotten it. Please recite it for me slowly. The young woman recited it again. Before the poem was finished, Toad Palace suddenly jumped up from the bed and exclaimed, "When did I become sick?" Joyfully, he embraced the young woman as if his illness had completely disappeared. After a while, he asked her, "What did my father say to your mother? Is our marriage agreed upon?" The young woman had already sensed Old Toad's intention and directly told Toad Palace, "Your father did not agree." Shortly after, the young woman left, and Old Toad returned. Seeing that Toad Palace was already awake, he was extremely pleased and offered words of comfort and encouragement. Old Toad also mentioned the encounter with the Bai family mother and daughter, telling Toad Palace, "The young lady is quite good. However, when a fisherwoman ties her small braids, she begins to sing while rowing. It's not that I look down on their family background, I just worry that she might not be faithful." Toad Palace remained silent. After Old Toad left, the young woman returned, and Toad Palace relayed his father's thoughts. The young woman said, "I know very well, in this world, haste leads to failure. The more you welcome him, the less willing he'll be. We should let him change his mind on his own and come begging to us." Toad Palace asked her for a plan, and the young woman said, "Merchants value profit. I have a method to predict market prices. I looked at the goods on your ship just now, and none of them can bring in much profit. You'll buy some specific items and earn 3 times the profit. For other items, you'll earn 10 times the profit. If you buy these goods and take them back home, and if it turns out as I said, your father will think I'm a good daughter-in-law. Next year, when you come back here, you'll be 18, and I'll be 17. There will still be many joyful days ahead of us. So, what's there to worry about?" Toad Palace conveyed the predicted prices to his father. Old Toad was quite skeptical, but he used half of the remaining money to buy the goods, as suggested by Autumn Lotus. After returning home, Old Toad's own purchased goods incurred significant losses. Fortunately, a small portion of goods was bought following Autumn Lotus's advice, resulting in substantial profits that roughly balanced the overall situation. Old Toad was highly impressed by Autumn Lotus's ability to predict market prices. Taking advantage of this, Toad Palace exaggerated the situation, claiming that Autumn Lotus said such predictions could turn them into wealthy individuals. Intrigued, Old Toad took all the capital and headed south. Upon reaching Dongting Lake, he searched for several days, but couldn't find the Bai family old lady. A few days later, he finally spotted the old lady's boat anchored under a willow tree. Old Toad brought numerous gifts and spoke persuasively, asking the old lady to agree to the marriage. The old lady didn't accept his gifts and instead picked an auspicious day to send the young woman onto Old Toad's ship. Old Toad also specially rented a boat for the occasion and arranged the wedding for his son. After the wedding, the young woman had Old Toad stay on her boat, and he stayed there for 3 months until Old Toad returned. The goods Old Toad purchased in Shu were sold at a significantly higher price, earning him 5 times their value. Old Toad brought his son and daughter-in-law back to the northern region. Before leaving, Autumn Lotus asked Toad Palace to bring back some lake water. Back home, she would add a little lake water to every meal, just like adding soy sauce or vinegar. Since then, every time Old Toad went out for business, he would bring back several barrels of lake water. Years later, after 3 or 4 years, Old Toad went south for business and didn't return for several months. The lake water was running out, and despite waiting and waiting, Old Toad still didn't return. Autumn Lotus fell ill, experiencing shortness of breath day and night, and struggled to breathe. She instructed Toad Palace, "If I die, don't bury me. At the Mao, Wu, and yours each day. Recite Dufu's poem Dreaming of Li Bai for me. This way, my body won't decay. When the lake water arrives, pour it into a basin, close the door, take off my clothes, and immerse me in the lake water. This will revive me." After a few more days of struggling, Autumn Lotus couldn't hold on and passed away. Half a month later, Old Toad returned with lake water. Toad Palace hurriedly followed Autumn Lotus's instructions. After soaking in the lake water for more than an hour, Autumn Lotus gradually regained consciousness. From then on, Autumn Lotus often expressed her desire to return to her hometown. After Old Toad's passing, Toad Palace honored Autumn Lotus's wishes. The whole family moved to the Chu region to live.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.